Well, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fun with Maps. I'm your host, Dan Hansen. It's cold here. It's winter here in Cleveland, Ohio, and so I got my hoodie on. But it's certainly not as cold as the peak of the area we're looking at today in Fun with Maps. If this is your first time joining us, thanks and welcome. We've got almost 50 other episodes of Fun with Maps out there covering interesting locations around the globe and how the map and their geography affects their history and people, so check some out. But this one, I got inspired to do this one. I was listening to some oldies on the radio, an oldie station last week. I was driving and it's got me thinking about it. And there was a song by Bachman Turner Overdrive called You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And there's a story about that. He stutters in it. And the story is that Randy Bachman, the leader of the band Bachman Turner Overdrive, BTO, his brother stuttered. So he made this song as kind of a joke, bust chops with his brother. And it was never supposed to be released. But when the record execs heard it, they said, this is great. They wanted to release it, so they did. And it became their number one hit. It was their only number one hit for BTO. So that got me thinking about some other famous songs with intentional stutters in it, like The Who. If you're old enough to remember The Who and My Generation, where Roger Daltrey does all that stuttering there, and it was supposedly he was mimicking the youth of the time in England with the mods who would take a lot of speed, methamphetamines, and they would have this stutter and all. And then there was My Sharona by the Knack, and Changes by David Bowie, and Benny and the Jets by Elton John, and Jive Talking by the Bee Gees. All those were had some intentional stutters put in the song. So what's that have to do with maps? Well, whenever I think of the capital of Nepal, which is the topic of this episode of Fun with Maps, I think of the Bob Seger song Kathmandu. And in it, don't worry, I'm not going to sing, but he goes, I think I'm going to Kathmandu. It's really, really where I'm going to. If I ever get out of here, that's what I'm going to do. And then he goes, Kathmandu. And he goes on from there. And I guess when you read about the inspiration of the title, Bob Seger. In fact, here's Bob. I still like vinyl. I'm old school. Bob Seger, Silver Bullet Band, great band from Detroit. The inspiration came from, he chose Kathmandu. First of all, it sounds cool, but it's also a symbolic destination. It's in the Himalayas. It represented to him the most remote and unattainable place he could imagine, so that he would be totally isolated from his troubles by going there. So if you don't know the song Kathmandu, you probably know Kathmandu because of it's in Nepal, and it's right by Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest spot on Earth. So in this episode of Fun with Maps, we're going to look a little more at Nepal and drill down into Kathmandu, its capital. And I promise I won't sing. I will try not to even stutter any. Okay, here's a map of Asia to give us some perspective. And you can see the big places, of course, Russia and China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Iran, Pakistan, India, Southeast Asia over here. We're going to look over here by India. We go up north here, and there's Nepal. Okay. Over here, it's also often tied in with Nepal is Bhutan. And there, Nepal here, you can see here's China, here's India. So it's right in there. Kathmandu is the capital and largest city of Nepal. And it's, as we'll see, it's in the central to east part of the country in the Kathmandu Valley. But here you can see, it's interesting, these colors here. Notice this green of India. And through here is green, same green and all. So we're going to look at that. That's pretty interesting. Here's a locator map to show that a little more clearly. Again, here's India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran. Over here is Bangladesh, Myanmar, Burma, China up here. And this dark red area, that's Nepal. That's what we're looking at. Here's Bhutan over here. a little corridor here, and this is all India in there. Okay, so like I say, they often consider, people consider Nepal and Bhutan together often. They're both landlocked, as you can see. Here's the Himalayas along here. China up here, India to the south here. Here you can see from this map of China, here's China and Burma, India here. Here's the Himalayas, okay, and there's Nepal, there's Bhutan. Mount Everest is right here, 29,029 feet, right at Nepal and at the border here. And there's Bhutan. Bangladesh is down here. We did a previous Fun with Maps episode on Bangladesh, so check that sometime. And up here again is India. We're going to see a little more of that. It's an interesting map there. So zooming in here, again, here's Nepal. Here's Kathmandu, the capital, which we're looking at today. Here's Bhutan with Thimphu, its capital. Bangladesh is down here. Myanmar, formerly known as Burma there. China up here. Here's India. But notice again, here's India. Same color over here. And this little area here. Okay. So Nepal and Bhutan are separated by the Indian state of Sikkim, S-I-K-K-I-M, okay? Now, Nepal and Bhutan are similar in many ways, but there's big differences too. So Nepal is prominently Hindu. It's got a significant Buddhist minority, but it's predominantly Hindu. Bhutan, on the other hand, is a Buddhist nation, and Buddhism is deeply integrated into everyday life and governance. So Nepal is more of a melting pot. It's got various cultures, some diversity. Bhutan is more preserving of its unique culture and traditions. Their tourism will be about protecting its landscapes and traditions and all, where Nepal's tourism will be a variety of adventure activities, going up in the Himalayas and things like that. So, but again, we're going to look at this here because that's interesting on the map. So again, this is another, showing Asia. There's Nepal, little area of India there. There's Bhutan. Okay, so formal diplomatic relations between Bhutan and Nepal were established in 1983. There's been some challenges. In recent years, there's been a Bhutanese refugee crisis, so that strains the relationship. We don't get into politics on Fun with Maps, so I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to talk about Tibet or any of that either. We're just going to look at the maps. Again, let's look at, just to get some perspective here, this colored area is India, and you see how it goes up here and continues up here. This is Bangladesh, this is Bhutan, this is Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Africa, all that. Sri Lanka down there. But look at these colors here. You're going to see to the east of Nepal, to the west of Bhutan. So, before we go on, let's look at this land here. So Sikkim is the least populous of the and second smallest of the states of India. It's got 607,000 people, so by Menish standards it's populous, but by Indian standards it's not. So obviously it's in the eastern Himalayas. It is the host of this mountain here, Kanchenjunga. That's the highest peak in all of India, and it's the third highest on Earth. So Kanchenjunga here is in the Himalayas, but it's actually in India at 28,169 feet, and that makes it the highest in India and third highest on Earth. But that's in Sikkim there, which is an Indian state. But this here, it's obviously, for obvious reasons, nicknamed the Chicken Neck. This is the Siliguri corridor in India. Okay, it's a narrow strip of land. It connects this big Indian mainland here to the northeastern states, including Sikkim. And of course, that makes it very strategic. You know, it's a vital lifeline for trade, transportation, military, all this. This little chicken neck corridor, the Siliguri corridor, is so important there. Okay, so this up here, you know, you've got northeastern states here of India. This is India, this is India, this is India, and of course that's all India. This is Nepal. And there's the third largest mountain in the world right there, Kanchenjunga, and that's in Sikkim in India. So again, here we've got a little bigger map here. So over here is Nepal, there's Kathmandu, Mount Everest right up here, China up here, here's Bhutan, its capital, Thimphu there, Bangladesh down here. So this is all India down here that's not colored in. Here's the Indian state of Sikkim, and this area here is the Chicken Neck, the Siliguri corridor in the West Bengal state of India. So it's this only connection. There's 8 northeastern states up here, and this is all of India here. That's the only connection. So logistically, you know, it's huge for millions of people in the country. You know, remember when we did the Fun with Maps episode on Bangladesh? So the reason behind this, really, when they partitioned India, that's what led to this Siliguri corridor, because they created from East Pakistan right here, which is now Bangladesh, of course. But when they did the partitioning, this was East Pakistan, became Bangladesh, and this, you know, they partitioned Bengal into East and West Bengal in 1947 and 1948. So that's why we have this little area here. Okay, so let's look at Nepal, and then finally the capital, Kathmandu. So here's the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal. It's landlocked, as we saw, mainly in the Himalayas here, but down here is the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Here's the Ganges River. So here's the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Himalayas here, China up here. This is Nepal. Okay, it's pretty much a kind of a trapezoid shape, or maybe a extended rectangle. I don't know how you look at it. It's about 500 miles long, about 120 miles wide. It's got an area of about 60,000 square miles, and it's got 3 principal physiographic belts. So it's Himal, Pahad, and Terai. So let's go back to this map for a second. You can see, you know, it's got 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains in here, including, of course, Mount Everest, the highest point above mean sea level on Earth. And we found another over here, number 3. So, but the Himalayas are what really people know. Kathmandu, they know Nepal because of the Himalayas, and of course Mount Everest. So here's just an aerial view of the Himalayas. There's Mount Everest in the center there, the highest peak, which we did. It's on the border, so it's kind of shared by both countries, but people think of it as being in Nepal. It's 29,025 or 29 feet, and remember, it was named after Sir George Everest. He was a British surveyor and geographer. He was the Surveyor General of India in the 1830s, I think 1830 to 1843. So Himal is the one of the 3 regions of Nepal. It's the mountain region containing snow, and it's situated in the Great Himalayan Range here. So this is the northern part of Nepal, and it's got all these highest elevations, including Mount Everest. By the way, Mount Everest, they call it Sagarmatha in Nepali. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but that's what it looks like, Sagarmatha, and that's on the border. And, of course, 7 other of the world's 8,000ers, they call them, are in Nepal or on the northern border there. This is just a, I like this map. It's topographic, kind of shows the 3 different parts of Nepal. It's from Wikimedia. So you've got the Himal up here, and you've got the Pahad, P-A-H-A-D. It's the mountain region that generally doesn't contain snow. So you see all this, Mount Everest there, and okay, of course here's Kathmandu, the capital. So in the Pahad region, the lower one, the mountains will go from 2,500 feet to 13,000 plus feet, and they progress from the subtropical climates to alpine climates. So when you're below 4,000 feet, it's different from when you're above 11,000 feet. And then you got the lower Himalayan range, when those are 5,000 to 10,000 feet, and that's the southern limit of this region. And there's subtropical river valleys and what they call hills. To us would be very large, and mountains even. So you can see from this, Nepal experiences 5 seasons. So it's got the 4 we're used to: summer, autumn, winter, and spring. But they also have a monsoon season. And these Himalayas, they serve as a natural barrier. They block the cold winds from Central Asia in the winter, and they form the northern limits of the monsoon wind patterns. So the geography really affects, as it often does, it affects the climate. Just a little history while we have this map up. And I'm not going to get into much history, but this is a fun with maps fact. So in the middle of the first millennium BC, Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, he was born in Lumbini in Nepal, southern Nepal. It's actually down here. It's not listed on this map, but this is where it is, in this little jutting out there. So that's where Buddha was, the first Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, was born. Nepal has never been colonized. It's always been a buffer, though, between India and China here. They did get parliamentary democracy in 1951, but monarchs then suspended it in 1960, as late as 2005. There's a civil war in the 90s and early 2000s. So they established a secular republic in 2008. So that was the world's last Hindu monarchy. So that's gone. They adopted a constitution in 2015. They said, hey, we're a federal parliamentary republic divided into 7 provinces. And there's been some problems as recently as September just last year, September 2025. There's been some protests and riots and all that. But it's a member of the UN since 1955. And they've got friendship treaties with India and China. Good thing. I mean, they're a buffer between India here and China, and if one of those was an enemy, that would be a real problem. This is a map by someone named Samar Vislivio, and we don't care about the languages that much. You can see there is variety, though, and most of it's Nepali, especially here at Kathmandu, which is what we're looking at. You'll see here, we'll see later, their emblem here. It's got the mountain, and here the most unique flag probably of all of them. But this red is Nepali. That's their main language. And if you look at the Kathmandu Valley, it's surrounded by Nepali speakers. Speaking of the Kathmandu Valley, this is a photo from the International Space Station from NASA, and so the metro area is kind of gray here. This is, Kathmandu in here. That's metro, urban. And then as you get farther out, of course, you get forest reserves, national parks, things like that. But this central part is Kathmandu. The whole Kathmandu Valley has been experiencing rapid urbanization. it's got a growth rate of about 4% per year as of 2010. So it's one of the fastest growing metro areas in all of South Asia. So that's the Kathmandu Valley from the International Space Station. And before the unification of Nepal, just this valley, just the Kathmandu Valley, was known as Nepal. You know, this, if you considered Nepal back then, this was it, the Kathmandu Valley. The term Nepal, the precise why do they call it that is not is uncertain. There's a lot of different theories. It's been called that. It's been in literary texts from back to the 4th century. Hindu mythology says they get their name from an ancient Hindu sage called Ni, N-E, and it's a place protected by Ni. So this country in the heart of the Himalayas came to be known as Nepal. The Buddhist mythology says Bodhisattva drained a lake of serpents and he created this valley, and he said that Adi Buddha Ne would take care of it and they'd settle it all. And it's because it's the cherished of Ne, the valley would be called Nepal. Another idea is a Norwegian Indologist proposed that Nepala was a compound of Nipa, N-I-P-A, which means foot of a mountain, and Ala, short suffix for Alaya, meaning abode. So Nepala meant abode at the foot of the mountain. That seems to make sense to me, but, who knows? There's uncertainty there, and it's pretty cool anyway. So let's look here at Kathmandu. The 2021 Nepal census says Kathmandu had a population of about 845,000, but there's about 4 million in the surrounding metropolitan area. Okay, right there. Kathmandu is recognized as one of the oldest continuously inhabited places in the world. Their history dates back to the 2nd century. So Kathmandu Valley and Kathmandu has, been the cultural and political hub for the newer people, the NEWAR, and they were the significant urban civilization in the Himalayas. It was the royal capital of the Kingdom of Nepal, and there's palaces and temples and gardens that reflect that, which make it a interesting tourist destination. It's still the epicenter of Nepal's history, art, culture, and economy. And like I say, it's got this multi-ethnic population. There's a Hindu majority, but there's a lot of there's a big Buddhist presence too. They have a lot of religious and cultural festivals, and between those, the religious and cultural stuff, and the Himalayas, Mount Everest, it's a tourism plays a vital role in the economy. So this is a photo from someone named Anders Genbo, and this is the Durbar Market. Okay, so Kathmandu's got several World Heritage sites, including this Durbar Square here, D-U-R-B-A-R. So Patan Durbar Square is one of the 3 palace squares in the Kathmandu Valley. It was built in the 17th centuries, and there's over a millennium of development in Nepali art and culture. So you see some real old stuff here, and then they're selling flags here and all of that. This is a CIA photo. It's a view of the temples in the area of the Durbar Square in the historic center of Kathmandu. This photo was taken before the earthquake of 2015, which was devastating, and many of these buildings were severely damaged or destroyed. 2015, not that long ago. So we have some ideas where the name of Nepal came from. The Nepali name Kathmandu comes from Kathmandu, and that's a building. It stood in the Kathmandu Durbar Square that we just saw. One of them that was completely destroyed in that 2015 earthquake. It's since been reconstructed. In Sanskrit, Kasta means wood and Mandapa means pavilion. So it's a wood pavilion. and that's Kathmandu. Okay. The earliest references from the west of Kathmandu is from a Portuguese priest who passed through in 1628, and the king treated him well, and the father reported they reached what he called Cadmendu, Kathmandu, and he called it the capital of the Nepal kingdom. So obviously it's an important transit point in the trade between India and its neighbors. So they had tremendous growth in architecture, the Silk Road, the artistry of the newer people, and like I say, they were the indigenous inhabitants of the Kathmandu Valley. So that's how it grew and became what it is. So here's a map from someone named Udanikabar, and so here's the Kathmandu Valley, and then the northwest part of it is actually the urban center of Kathmandu. To the north of this river, it's the Bagmati River. And Kathmandu is dissected by about 8 rivers, the Bagmati and 8 tributaries. This is interesting. The Bagmati, which flows through Kathmandu, is very special to both Hindus and Buddhists, and there's a lot of Hindu temples, especially on the banks of the river. Hindus are actually cremated on the banks of the Bagmati, and Kirans are buried in the hill by its side. And according to the Nepali Hindu tradition, the dead body must be dipped 3 times into the Bagmati before cremation. And then the chief mourner, who is usually the first son, will light the funeral pyre. He must take a holy river water bath right after the cremation. So a lot of the relatives who join the funeral procession will also take a bath or sprinkle the holy water at the end of the cremation, because they believe the Bagmati will purify people spiritually. So that's pretty interesting. I mentioned tourism, and there's the religious tourism and all the cultural sites and the Himalayas and Mount Everest and all that. This is also a place, where you could ride an elephant and have a one-horned rhinoceros, within feet of you. So that's probably the only place in the world where you could do that. So it's really a great tourist destination. And then we get to the flag. And the fun with maps facts here is that Nepal is the only country with a flag that is not rectangular or square. This is their flag. So they got this crimson red, a blue border. It's got a stylized white moon here, and it's got a 12-pointed white sun here. And the meaning, they say, the red is for the rhododendron, which is their natural flower, and victory and bravery. The blue border is for peace and harmony. The 2 triangles are a combination of the 2 pennants that originally symbolized the Himalaya mountains. Okay? But today they refer to Hinduism and Buddhism, their 2 main religions. The moon stands for the serenity of people, as well as Himalayan shade and cool weather, and the sun for the heat and high temperatures in the rest of the country. So that's a cool flag. And just as an aside, it has a cool flag too. So it's got this, it's divided diagonally, yellow and dark orange. But in the middle is what's really nice. It's got this black and white dragon facing to the right there, and the dragon is called the Druk, D-R-U-K, which is stands for Thunder Dragon, and that's their national emblem. So both Nepal and Bhutan have really cool flags. Pretty cool, huh? Keeping with the musical theme that we started with, in the late 60s and the 70s, a bunch of hippies visited Kathmandu, and they were making religious and musical pilgrimages and all that, and they actually introduced rock and jazz music to the city. So Kathmandu became internationally noted for its jazz festival, and they cleverly called it Jazzmandu. So that's cool. It's the only jazz festival in the Himalayas, not surprisingly, and it attracts musicians, from all around the world, U.S. and Australia and India and Europe, all of that. So continuing with the hippies, there's a area there, a street. It's called Jahachan Toll, but it got renamed and branded as Freak Street, because that's where all the hippies hung out when they went to Kathmandu. The international guests would come there, talk about music and all that, and before they had Jazzmandu, they'd have these hippies there on Freak Street. So, and it's been in a lot of songs, besides the Bob Seger song. Cat Stevens had a song about Kathmandu. Rush had a song. Even John Lennon in Nobody Told Me, he talks about Kathmandu. So it's a pretty cool place. I hope you like this look at Kathmandu. If you did, please click like and subscribe. That'll keep you current and never miss an episode of Fun with Maps. One of our readers sent in this cool line for us. He says, geology rocks, but geography is where it's at. So thanks for sending that in. And until next time, I'm your host, Dan Hansen. Keep on having fun with maps.